In his apartment, Alan Ritchson once received 8 identical pairs of white sneakers, all ordered in the same manic episode. He'd become obsessed with finding sneakers that looked perfectly like tennis shoes, but weren't actually tennis shoes. 3 days later, 8 pairs arrived at his door. That's when he realized, oh shit, I'm in a manic state. For most people, this would be embarrassing. For Alan Ritchson, it was the key to everything. You see Reacher, 6 feet 3 inches, 235 pounds of pure muscle demolishing bad guys on Amazon Prime. What you don't see is the obsessive-compulsive mania that built every single piece of that performance. At 36, Ritchson was officially diagnosed with bipolar disorder and ADHD. But his mania doesn't manifest as wild partying or reckless spending. It becomes something far more dangerous: obsessive perfectionism. The same brain that orders 8 identical sneakers is the brain that spent 3 weeks re-rehearsing a single failed audition until every micro-expression was perfect. But here's what most people miss. This wasn't always his superpower. For years, it was his kryptonite. In 2004, 20-year-old Alan Ritchson auditioned for American Idol. He was an Abercrombie catalog model who took his shirt off in front of Paula Abdul and sang Stevie Wonder. During Hollywood Week, producers convinced him to wear a swimsuit and play around in the pool with female contestants. Then, they edited the footage to make him look like he was slacking off while others practiced. The media consumed him as a party boy with a good body, but an empty head. This planted a toxic seed that his only value was his physique. 7 years later, that seed would detonate in the most catastrophic audition failure of his career. And paradoxically, that explosion would create the Alan Ritchson we know today. 2011, Marvel's Thor audition. Alan Ritchson walked in thinking his hammer was already forged. "I didn't take the audition seriously," he later admitted. "I thought if I just looked like the character, they'd throw me the role. Nobody cares about acting ability." Marvel's response was surgical in its cruelty. He didn't demonstrate the craft. The role went to Chris Hemsworth. The rejection shattered everything Ritchson thought he knew about success. Here's where his hidden gear kicked in. That same obsessive mania that bought 8 sneakers now had a new target, proving Marvel wrong. He spent 3 weeks with an acting coach, re-rehearsing that Thor audition night and day. Not to get a callback, the role was gone, but to understand exactly where he failed. Then he did something extraordinary. He sought out Deborah Aquila, casting director for The Shawshank Redemption and casting VP at Paramount Television Studios. Aquila initially had doubts. She'd seen him as Thad in Blue Mountain State, the loud, obnoxious football player. Could this physical comedy actor really learn the craft? But she noticed something in his eyes, a twinkly intensity and desperate hunger to improve. After monologue tests and creating pro and con columns, she accepted him. Ritchson calls this his Batman Begins moment. Like Bruce Wayne training with Ra's al Ghul, he was completely rebuilt from the ground up. He learned to prime his unconscious, to build detailed backstories for every character, to read between the lines of scripts. The loud, funny guy disappeared. In its place emerged something controlled, economical, even sinister. An actor who could think on screen. When Reacher came along, Ritchson weighed 205 pounds. The character in Lee Child's novels was described as a mountain, so his obsessive mania had a new project. In 8 months, he gained 30 pounds of muscle, from 205 to 235 pounds. He consumed over 4,500 calories daily while training 5 days a week with high-intensity weight training and calisthenics. But this wasn't healthy fitness preparation. This was self-destruction as art. "I fucking wrecked my body," he said. "I felt things tearing and thought, I don't care, keep working." His mania extended to the stunts. He insisted on doing every dangerous action sequence himself. The stunt coordinator actually quit the set temporarily, unable to handle Ritchson's recklessness. "I refused to use a stunt double. That was clearly manic behavior," Richardson admitted later. "I wanted to do every fucking stunt myself." After season 1 wrapped, his body rebelled. He needed surgery to breathe properly. His testosterone levels had completely crashed from overtraining. But underneath this physical obsession lay something darker. Years of sexual exploitation in the modeling industry, what he called legalized sex trafficking, had left deep scars. Hundreds of rejected auditions, being treated as a disposable object by the entertainment system. All of this culminated in 2019 when Ritchson hit rock bottom. Trapped in bed for weeks with severe depression, he attempted suicide by hanging himself from the rafters in his home. In that moment of losing consciousness, visions of his 3 sons, Calum, Eden, and Amory, flashed before his eyes. That miraculous moment of clarity pulled him back from the edge. At 36, he finally received his bipolar disorder diagnosis and began psychiatric treatment. Now he had the missing piece of the puzzle. His wife Catherine and assistant monitor his symptoms. He sees a psychiatrist weekly. The chaos in his brain finally had a control system. Reacher Season 1 dropped on Amazon Prime in 2022. Within 3 days, it accumulated 1.8 billion minutes of viewing time, numbers that rival Netflix's biggest movies. But the real explosion came with Season 3 in February 2025. In just 19 days, it attracted 54.6 million global viewers. This demolished the 40 million viewers that Rings of Power Season 2 managed in 11 days. It became Amazon Prime Video's most watched returning season in history. By March 2025, Reacher had accumulated 6.6 billion minutes of viewing time across all streaming platforms, beating Netflix, Disney+, and Hulu combined for the #1 spot. Overseas audiences made up 56% of viewership, with explosive reactions in the UK, Germany, and Brazil. This wasn't just American success, it was global domination. Most people assume Reacher works because Alan Ritchson is big and punches things hard. They're missing the real innovation. This is thinking muscle. Lee Child, the author of the Reacher novels, watched Richardson's audition and said, "You could see him thinking and calculating. He's always thinking 3 seconds ahead of everyone else." That's Deborah Aquila's training combined with bipolar obsessiveness. Reacher doesn't just fight, he pauses, reads the situation, then acts with surgical precision. In Season 3, Ritchson faced off against Olivier Richter's 7 feet 2 inches, 400 pounds of Dutch giant playing the villain Polly. The fight sequence took 3 weeks to film. Ritchson insisted on taking real hits. At one point, he was thrown through a table and actually knocked unconscious on camera. I wanted viewers to know I was really enduring this for Reacher. I wanted the camera on my face when I hit that barn floor table, he said. The success of Reacher opened doors across Hollywood. Ritchson established his production company, Entertainment, and started choosing his own projects. He directed, wrote, produced, and starred in the thriller Dark Web, Cicada 3301. He appeared alongside Hilary Swank in Ordinary Angels, showing his range beyond action. Then came Guy Ritchie's The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, where he worked alongside Henry Cavill, and a Navy SEAL biopic produced by Sylvester Stallone. When his manager, Dan Spilo, started abusing crew members on set, Ritchson fired him immediately and removed him from the film's credits. Leadership through action. But the ultimate test of his transformation came in Motor City, a 2025 film that premiered at the Venice Film Festival and Toronto International Film Festival. In this 103-minute film, Ritchson's character speaks exactly 5 lines of dialogue. The entire performance is conveyed through micro-expressions, body language, and the rhythm of violence. The same model who once thought nobody cares about acting ability had become an actor capable of holding critics spellbound without saying a word. Here's the paradox that defines Alan Ritchson. Hollywood's most convincingly invincible character is played by someone who manages his mental health weekly with psychiatric care. 2 years ago, he started a YouTube channel called InstaChurch, where he discusses his bipolar disorder, his suicide attempt, and his spiritual struggles with complete transparency. For an action star whose brand is built on strength, this level of vulnerability is unprecedented, but it's also strategic. On the channel, he talks about 2 types of suffering. The first is meaningless pain that destroys you, depression, trauma, uncontrolled mania. The second is chosen suffering, the pain you accept to perfect a character, to help others, to create something meaningful. How can I suffer for you, he asks. We were created to make the world a better place and serve others, he says. This isn't self-help platitudes, it's operational philosophy. Ritchson took his most severe mental defect, uncontrolled manic obsession, and converted it into perfectionist fuel for his craft. He took his most humiliating failure, the Thor audition, and used it as a mirror for complete self-reconstruction. He took his most traumatic experience, the suicide attempt, and transformed it into a bridge for connecting with others who suffer in silence. Most of us hide our failures, medicate our obsessions, and suppress our breakdowns. We treat our flaws as bugs to be fixed. Ritchson's blueprint suggests something different. What if your greatest weaknesses aren't obstacles to success, but the raw materials for building something unprecedented? Behind every Reacher punch, every calculated stare, every perfectly controlled movement is a 43-year-old man who orders 8 identical sneakers and needs weekly therapy to function. The question isn't whether you have broken parts. The question is, are you going to let them break you, or are you going to forge them into something the world has never seen before?